Hey, what's up guys? I'm Mike and this is Porty's Chop Shop. In this video, it's part 2 of fitting the 240SX front subframe to my Datsun 620. I'm going to start by modifying the front subframe to fit the steering rack, and then I'm going to go about building my front coil cups to get to the point where I'm about to build uprights for the front suspension. So let's go! You can see here I have my steering rack set up. It's been modified quite heavily by a friend. This is a right-hand drive 240, or I guess a Silvia rack. The reason I did that is because I switched the steering rack position from behind the crossmember to in front of the crossmember by just reversing the crossmember. So the gear that actually rotates or moves the rack inside of this casing is mounted on one side of the rack. So if you go and reverse the rack that way, then when you turn the steering wheel left, the wheels go right, which is definitely not going to work out, obviously. So my solution was to get a Silvia rack because the actual gear set that's mounted to the rack is on the other side from where we are in the US. And then once you go ahead and rotate that, then it's backwards. But it's already backwards, so the double backwards makes it right. And obviously I had my knuckles modified to correct for the Ackerman angle. If you don't know what that is, go look it up. It's super easy to find on Google, and I probably can't do a good enough job of explaining it. So I need to get all of this assembled and in the vehicle. One, because I need to mount everything in place so I know where to mount my upper coil mounts, which is the last bit of fab work I need to do this. And then also I want to have it all assembled with the 2003 Maxima outer tie rods and make sure first that they're long enough. And if I can get my toe zeroed out and test the rotation of the rack, I can see if the Ackerman angle was corrected or not. But I got a little hasty in my steering rack painting. You can see I cut the motor mounts off and then welded them flat back on here with another brace in here. If I hadn't have done that, then the only thing holding the subframe kind of like to the frame portion was 2 spot welds and a tiny weld underneath. So I welded all this back in for the original bracing that the motor mounts provided. But I need to rotate this rack just a little bit more to get it to clear under my oil pan, and I don't want it sitting rubbing on the motor mount over here. I'll show that. So the reason for that is so I can gain a little bit of clearance over here and then point my steering, the column pickup or the input to the rack down enough to get it pointed in there right. So that's what I'm doing today. Mount this up, modify that first, and then throw another coat of paint on there, and then get my knuckles all mounted up and everything, and then see where we go from there. Stay tuned. Alright, you guys just saw me cut that clearance off of the motor mount over here, or the old motor mount. So let's go ahead and test fit the rack and see if I have to clearance any more of it, and then we'll go from there. Not too bad for the first shot. There we go. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and run that flush down there, and then I'll have as much clearance as I can possibly gain from this. That may come in contact or be really close right there, but nothing I can do about that. I think by the time that happens, my lines will be contacting the cross member. So I'll just go ahead and do that, shave it down, and then we'll do another test fit. All right, gained the clearance that I needed on there. This is as far down as it can go without contacting it, but the lines are about to touch anyways, so there's enough clearance under here for what I need. I'm gonna put a fresh coat of paint on this and I'll come back when it's dry. All right, paint has mostly dried up, enough to where I can sneak in the rack. Oh, sorry. There we go. So I got the steering rack in, line's clear. Still gotta figure out the other mount, but I'll get that once I have the final position sorted out. So, as I'm sure you can guess, what I'm working on next is trying to figure this part out. The steering input here is gonna have to come this way a bit to clear the turbo and everything. Definitely glad I widened that frame rail. So probably get the steering shaft installed and then do some sort of intermediate shaft here. That kind of, maybe it will sneak under the turbo. I don't know, we'll figure it out. But next up, I got to get the brake booster on and then the suspension lined up. I'll lower the truck down and then set the coil towers where I want them. So I'll be doing that now. All right, got this, I believe got this off a S14. It actually bolts on the top 2 bolts to the Datsun pedestal here, which is pretty crazy, but whatever, Nissan Legos, you know. So I got lots of room around my turbo manifold. Much better option going with the booster and the upgraded 240 master versus running a top mount manifold for no reason. I had a top mount manifold before, literally causes nothing but problems and there's absolutely no benefit to it. So stock cast manifold for me. The bottom bolts on here don't really line up. I had to cut the ear off down there. I'm just gonna weld this plate out so that all 4 bolts go in. But you can see things are starting to get pretty busy in here. I still have to make strut towers and room for that. No idea how I'm gonna go about that, but that's why I'm doing all this, so let's figure it out. Okay, so I got the wheel in place, but what I'm gonna do is slip this upright right here. The coil mount can go right there, and then I'm gonna tack weld this plate. I'm gonna use the strut bar as a gauge to see how far they are across from each other. I think the engine might be in the way. And then I'll set the caster and camber and then tack weld this plate to the body in a few places so that I know it's where I need it. And then I can build the uprights that I need from there. So not so bad. So with that Maxima inner tie rod, I think I said outer tie rod earlier, but that Maxima inner tie rod definitely reaches right there. So sick. All right. All right, you can sort of see what I'm going for now. I have this strut bar, which means that the distance between the two coil mounts is correct now because the strut bar only fits when they are right. So now what I need to do is set the caster and camber on both struts and then make a plate here that I can weld in place just from parts of the body and triangulate it all around so I know it doesn't move, and then figure out how to build up to that strut mount. So first I need to make the plates to go in between this and this, and then I can go about tacking it to the body, and then I have my rough measurements of exactly how the strut mounts will sit, and then I can figure out clearance for everything else. So just wanted to give you a quick update, and back to it. All right, back from a little spring break. My last spring break ever. So this is the old piece off of that Greddy strut bar. I don't know if I showed it or not, but that Greddy bar is wasted. Somebody mounted it way too close to the engine, and it's just completely destroyed underneath. So I don't really trust it, and I'm just using it for distance. So I'm using this as a template, and I'm gonna follow this pattern right here to make the strut mounts that I want, and I'm gonna weld those strut mounts in place like I mentioned, and then go about building like the actual uprights that support the control, like the coilovers. It'll make more sense as you see it, but I got some materials while I was on my way back. So I got some 3x3 box steel here, which is actually perfect. Guessed on that one. So I'm gonna make these probably about 3 inches tall. And then I have this 6-inch, I think it's 6-inch OD tube, 120 wall. This is 120 wall. That's 120 wall. Everything's 120 wall. And it definitely, it was too small to fit when I was trying to make strut coil towers just out of this, but seeing that I need a flat shape on the back to kind of make some clearance for the coilovers, I cut this little test piece off of what I had. So once that pops open, it's actually the perfect shape, and then I'm gonna end up welding this to it to make the shape that I'm after. So I'll kind of update you as I go along and see what I can come up with. All right, been hitting the grinder hard here. Got my pieces cut. So like I was saying, this piece I went from 3.5 inches to 2 inches on this side. That will slide over that guy. Well, not yet, because I gotta add the back piece on there. 2 inches at the front there so that it doesn't contact anything, and then 3.5 inches at the back so I have more stuff to weld to. I got an expanded 3x3 box tube here, and that will meet up with a piece like that, and then I'll have a little coil pocket that kind of emulates that shape. All right, clearly another brand new day. This is what I've worked out. Again, like I said, I was copying this strut tower top and using that kind of as a template to create this. And now you can see how that will slip over the top there. And then I'll make a top plate for it, cut out some holes so I can adjust that, and then give me one sec. So that'll sit down like that, and that gives me some metal to weld to get the strut tops from a couple of different points, try and triangulate it, and then hopefully run a cross brace over to the other side, but one step at a time. So now I have this, I'll clean it up. I'm not going to fully weld anything until obviously till I know it all works, because I've learned that lesson. So clean this up a bit and start tracing out a top for it and go from there. All right, here we go. I'm making some steady progress. So here is the passenger side plate. So what I did was I marked out a pattern on here and then used a hole saw to kind of etch out the shape that I want, and then I'll cut the spaces in between there, and then these are for the adjusters on the camber plate. So let me show you on the truck. So as you can see, I already got one completely done. I just need to fully weld it out. I had to test fit it first though. So there's room for the camber adjustment, slotted bolts to go, but there's clearance for everything, and then some good metal to weld to all the way around. So I'll fit up the other one, fully weld those out now that I know that they fit, and then I can go about placing it where I need it and then tack it in place. Alrighty, so I finished both of the cups. The upper coil mount cups is what I'm calling them. So you can see I'm still using the strut bar. Again, the strut bar is just to make sure the distance between the coils is correct. And then what I'm gonna do is set the caster and camber on this based off the factory 240SX specs. My frame is level both ways, and the ride height is pretty much even both front to back. So that's all I got to do. Just set the suspension specs, and then find a way to weld up the uprights and support this, and then it will actually be rolling chassis, which is super exciting for me. So all right, that I think I will save for another day. All right, that's really good progress. I'm gonna go ahead and call it there for this video. I have a lot of thinking to do on how I'm gonna build those uprights and how to make it strong and sturdy, and I need to focus really hard to get those specs exactly right when I weld those cups in place, because I can make up a lot of it with the alignment specs, but the closer I get to the factory suspension specs from the start, the less I have to take up in alignment and the better off the end result will be. So I'm gonna go ahead and call it there. So thank you so much for watching this. Please drop your comments below about how you think I could build those uprights. I'm thinking probably DOM tube or box tubing, kind of ugly, but it'll be covered by fenders anyways. Also, let me know if you guys have powered by Max coils or Fortune Auto coilovers or something like that, and if they look very similar to those peating rods in size and height and adjustability. That information would help me out so much. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.